Okay, we have 6 of us. So can I get a mover for the consent items? Moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Questions on, I guess we don't take questions on consent. Councillor Gazzola, question on consent?
I would like to see this comes back to council next week for ratification.
It does.
I would like to see a set of financial statements for this organization.
For the Tourism Marketing Corporation? I'm sure they'd be happy to do that.
The tourism, yes.
Yeah. Okay, no further questions. Those in favor?
Can you call them separately? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Take the 2 separately?
Yeah.
Sure. So we'll take the first one first, the culture survey. Those in favor? That carries unanimously. And the Tourism Marketing Corporation, those in favor? And opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, we're going to get right into the delegations. And item number 3 is a Creative Enterprise Initiative. And we do have a delegation. Mr. Farwell. Good afternoon, sir. Reminder, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Yep. I understand that you are behind and wanting to catch up on time. I'll be quick. So thanks for the time this afternoon. I'm really here on behalf of my fellow board members to bring their remarks. I have to apologize for one typo in a letter that was circulated with your report, wherein we inadvertently mentioned that the funding we're talking about is coming from the region of Waterloo, which you probably would prefer, but it was a typo and just a transposition, so I apologize for that. So as many of you know, after undergoing a self-imposed organizational review in 2014 and 15 to help inform our strategic direction, the CEI Board of Directors determined 2 proposed priorities based on feedback that we have from the community at large. And they are, 1, to help our customers, that being the residents of Waterloo Region, find incredible things to do in our community that are engaging and entertaining. And number 2, to facilitate creative projects that tie the region together with innovative programming that promotes collaboration across all of the sectors and encourages interaction among our community residents. So further, based on that community feedback, the CEI board strongly agrees that, number 1, small to mid-size arts organizations and emerging artists in Waterloo Region continue to be severely underfunded, and you've been dealing with that again today. I know you feel that stress, and we're here to emphasize it. You've heard from Empty Space, and there are others. Number 2, that there are many worthy and credible creative activities happening in our community, so we don't want to go short on the fact that there are good things happening, and this is just about more. And that's the reason for the priority number 1 being enunciated. Number 3, that permanent creative placemaking infrastructure that creates a constant energy and sort of a vibe on the streets that exists in our competitor cities that we talked about at the All-Council meeting is missing largely from Waterloo Region, and that's the reason for priority number 2. So we're not referring to the festivals, public art events, or the work of institutions that are already at work. This is cultural infrastructure we're talking about. And then finally, number 4, that working with and through key organizations and groups such as the municipalities, the arts community, and the business sector to enhance and complement existing initiatives will be absolutely vital in the success of those 2 priorities. So with the community's best interests at heart and being top of mind, the CEI board has determined that these 2 proposed strategic priorities do not need a standalone organization to deliver them. The board is recommending that to align synergies within the community and quell concerns of redundancy, that these 2 strategic objectives be merged with an existing organization or separate organizations that have similar visions and goals. However, time is needed to develop the priorities and prepare them for a transition, including the establishment of advisory committees that will be essential, as well as a consultation with the private sector around future project funding in regard to the placemaking objective. To achieve this, CEI is working towards an operating model for 1 final year, that being 2016, in collaboration with a partner organization, that would be a private sector partner organization, to host that administration, allowing CEI to focus its resources entirely on developing and preparing the 2 priorities. So no cost in operations to house that team. Our board is exploring several opportunities for collaboration at the moment, and they are looking very promising, with some exciting prospects for meaningful and mutual benefit. Since its inception, CEI has provided great value to our community in many ways, and we've talked about many of them, including the facilitation of grant writing and business leadership programs and other things that have driven well over $1 million of provincial, federal, and private sector funding into Waterloo Region for creative endeavor. And those programs are not intended to be lost. During this one-year period, the CEI board will engage in conversations with potential partners to merge the two priorities. The CEI board may also decide to combine its other programs, as we noted earlier in the conversation, with other entities, or retain control of them, providing a central not-for-profit source for creative community fund development. And that's, I think, to Councillor Davies' comments earlier about the assets that still exist that have been produced by CEI within Wanalusen. So our budget continues to be lean, with the primary focus of our financial resources on hiring technical and content experts to further develop and grow Grand Social, respected writers to tell our creative stories, and a highly engaged community project manager, as well as grant writers to develop a plan for the placemaking projects. Once relevant partners have been confirmed and the assets adopted by the end of 2016, the CEI board will wind down the existing operations of the organization and will not seek further municipal or regional operating funding. That concludes my remarks. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. There are some questions. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can you again reference the regional and the City of Waterloo ask going forward in 2016?
So once again? Yeah.
The ask from the region and City of Waterloo.
Yes. So it's consistent with what we have done earlier. We're to the City of Waterloo this evening.
Same.
And the region tomorrow morning. And it's the same.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. They all received exactly the same information, again, that you have.
It's kind of a question and a comment at the same time, and understanding how much effort has gone in place with the review that you've already referenced that was done this year. I can say for at least myself, but there's a level of fatigue in acceptance of this information, in my part at least, and hoping that the return will be as much as what's being promised or being projected. Are we really going to get as much out of this for this 1 year that's being promised through this report or your application?
So the distinct feeling of the board of CEI is yes. There's already been some groundwork done to advance these priorities, and again, it's based on the research that Overlap did for us. And I think it comes with the realization and recognition that there was never any intent to have CEI become an institution, and so the outcomes and the impact that we'll get this year, I think, we'll see an alignment of energies and synergy that will be more permanent. And that's pretty much our aggressive plan. So we see a tremendous amount happening in this year.
But that's a 1-year mandate, you're saying?
Yes.
But there's a lot that's expected within that 1-year mandate.
There's a lot what?
There's a lot that's being expected from that 1-year mandate.
That's correct.
To accomplish.
Yes.
And you're still saying that can be met.
Absolutely.
Okay. $15,000 for web development and design. I'm not going to go into microscopic lens and look at each item here, but I'm saying it's just some things pop out more than others.
Right.
And this is to a website that's already designed and that's created content already. Can you comment more on that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to make some comments. I'll let Deb speak as well.
So basically we have what I would say is your Build It website that we've been gradually building upon, but the design aspect is something that we actually haven't invested in heavily, and that will make it much more user friendly, easier for the content providers to upload, and then obviously more appealing as a website itself. It's just a number in there that we've looked at with regard to how much we've spent in the past to get it where it is.
Okay.
Let's just move it forward.
That's fair. Am I okay on time, or should I ring back in?
Another minute.
Okay, all right. So quickly, I get rushed when you say just another minute, but so I do feel rushed now. I'll key back in.
It's not a problem.
I lost track.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Farwell. A couple of questions, Mr. Farwell. According to the information I have For 2016, CEI is looking at having 2 directors. These are paid positions. 2 directors, 1 coordinator, 1 curator, 1 researcher, 1 student, and a group of writers. By my math, they will be paid with benefits about $279,000. Is that correct?
Yeah?
It is.
Yeah, I think in the report that you would have had, I mean, the objectives largely depend on talent being applied to those objectives. So this is the misunderstanding of Grand Social and where it's going. And by the way, I should have mentioned that we've, in preparation for all of this, taken a fair bit of time to get some oversight and governance around where Grand Social goes by meeting with Boltmate and other experts in the field. This is not a calendar. It's not an events listing piece. It does that as a matter of one function. It actually is a dialogue. It is meant to tell stories about the region, to engage people who are looking in on this place as an opportunity to be a place of choice for talent to land, both for existing residents as well as those that have relocated or those that are coming. So this is a very active, highly curated phase that we're moving into in Grand Social, quite different than the way in which you knew it, and based on the community research that was compiled by Overlap.
I understand that. I just totally disagree with you. I was going to ask you, you've been here this afternoon, you've heard groups like Empty Space, Blues Festival, on a larger scale, Social Planning Council. We've had others scrambling to get a few dollars. You're going to spend next year, your budget is $317,000, $205. 317,205. Do you not think that money would be better spent on small groups like Empty Space?
Well, we're big fans of Empty Space. I think you know that. Many of us in the private sector already make investments in Empty Space the same way you do. The opportunities that I think we're providing for those groups are the avenues through Grand Social to actually promote them, and the placemaking piece that we're looking at will actually engage the community even further. So I think that there's a direct benefit for those people. I, like you, am interested in any way in which we can advance further investment in those small to mid-sized organizations, because they, in fact, animate the street. And we've learned lessons in the past with, theater and company and so on, where if we don't adopt something, a troop like Empty Space, we lose them. So better spent. I mean, in the first years, I think there's been a lot of dialogue. We have worked directly with Empty Space, and sure, I believe that there should be more investment there. I don't think at the expense of what the Creative Enterprise Initiative is intending to do on behalf of the community at large. One fuels the other.
Thank you.
Mayor Rabinovich.
Thank you. Roger, just a couple questions, and I apologize if I missed them during your presentation earlier on. But this, going forward, I presume, is subject to the other 2 funders saying yes. So, what happens if one of us says no, or 2 of us say no, and the third one says yes?
A good point. There's a special board meeting called by the CEI for this coming Friday morning, after the budget deliberations this week are completed, and the board will make their decisions around that tactic. I think the feeling is, if you want me to give you some sort of an anecdotal comment, is that this is either a community agenda that's important and aligns with the strategic objectives of the region at large and the municipalities individually, or it's not. So I think when I was here previously, I told you that to be responsible to the agenda and the funding that we have, we are both geared to wind down operations at December 31st of this year, or to continue on to align what the community has told us is important over the next year, and then responsibly saying that it's not an organization that should continue, because we've dealt with the kind of arts and culture thing, right? I mean, you've been through the same thing with the Bursell report, and we've kind of tidied up where that all goes and how it happens and how the funding, has been returned under the recommendation that Angela made with respect to small to mid-sized and emerging organizations. And this is now taking the broader and more fundamental community-wide objective that was part of CEI's creation in the first place and moving that part of the agenda forward. But we know those synergies can be aligned with other interests that are already alive. So,
Okay, I guess the other question I have then is if this weren't to continue, and I think it shouldn't based on the work that's been done, but if this weren't to continue, what would happen to the assets, I guess, that already exist? Like, has the board given any thought around that already?
So there, and Deb may want to chime in here as well. There is the not-for-profit that is known as, well, it's got a weird name in the government, Greater Waterloo Region Services Organization or something like that. But the CEI operation, which is now has better than 3 years of experience, so it has always been designed to provide air cover for applications and for organizations to be able to come together, aligned or otherwise, which is the work we've been doing, and we talked about the grant writing process and strategically how that all works. So that's one, which we would have to decide. The board will still determine where that lives. The other is CreateScape, which is the charitable arm, I'm going to say, or organization, which has been created purposely with its own board so that it can continue to, so we are able to receipt our community investors and so on. That will live as well, so we've already protected that. And then there are other miscellaneous, things that we've been working on that are just a matter of sorting. So in the near term, I suspect that CreateScape would probably adopt the CEI, operations without the intent of keeping it until we just move it. And I think you'll find our board continuing to operate until those interests are properly dedicated somewhere.
And so things like the web page and that, though, would
They go dark.
they'd go dark.
Grand Social goes dark on December 31st.
But otherwise, you see Grand Social ending up somewhere? Like, if it is funded, you see Grand Social actually continuing on beyond December 31st in someone's hands? Other organization.
We're not funded. I think when I was here last time and helped me, I think that I told you that Christie Digital offered some interim investment to help Grand Social stay alive. It's just that CEI as an organization won't have staff or content people to kind of man it. So we wanted to make sure there was enough time to have CEI live or stay alive. But I mean, if it's not funded and it doesn't move forward, and it needs some structural work, and it wants to be more than it has been in the past, which is what we clearly heard.
No, but I guess my question, sorry, and I'm probably out of time, but just to be clear, my question is, if we were to fund it this year and everybody else were to fund it, will the website cease to exist on December 31st, 2016, or will somebody else take it over?
Oh, pardon me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The intent is for it to find a home and continue in an enhanced way. Absolutely. That's the year's work.
Right, but we don't know where that'll be.
That's correct. That's the work ahead of us on both counts. On priority number 2, we still have to, describe that project. There's lots of alliances and lots of conversation we need to have around, both of those priorities. But number 2 is even more ambitious, and it requires the advisory committees and so on, because there's bits and pieces of this at work. I mean, your own staff are at work, let's say, on digital media strategy and so on. It's just how we lift that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, perfect. And Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair Davey. Along Mayor Vrvanovic's questioning, I'm just wondering what happens at the end of 2016. Have you been reaching out to Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation to see if this is, and what if the direction that you've taken it is not the direction that they want to take it? I just have concerns about that. I'm not, I respect you so much, but I just want to make sure we're not going to be duplicating or spending money that will not be used going forward.
So, did you have a comment?
No, not that.
So we've been in touch. I mean, as this has unfolded, we've had conversations with the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation. We've met with tourism. We've talked to the Chamber of Commerce. We've talked to Communitech. to the region of Waterloo and one of the universities as well, are a possibility, as well as the college. This work is going on, but let me try and assure you that the work in 2016 is to make sure that both these objectives find a place and some future funding so that they continue on. I'm not saying they're going to be in the same place, which is our realization. They don't need to be resident in CEI. They may be in two separate places, wherever the opportunity for a better life and a contribution to the community at large is best. So the intent's not for them to evaporate at 2016, quite the opposite.
Okay, and in the Grand Social, you talk about wanting to tell stories. Can you delve a little deeper into that? What
Sure, I can
stories?
just speak to that. So what we heard in our overlap research and the community engagement, we heard really strongly from the arts community that was one thing that they would like help with, is that they want to focus on their programming and the work that they're doing, and sometimes the marketing and the telling of their stories, or I would even say interpreting what they're doing so that a general audience can participate, is something that they lack. So what we determined was to try and connect the people we want to attend the events or the exhibitions and the activities need to understand clearly what it is and why it should appeal to them. So the case statement needs to be made. That's not always an artist or an arts organization's best ability. So by providing them, which speaks to Councillor Etherington's concerns with regard to the staff, it's all staff related. It is getting the right people to write the stories, to work with the arts community, to understand their stories so that they can then be amplified through the website, through social media, and then they own that story as well. So while we're paying for it because we're engaging writers who've got that knack to be able to do that, the organization or the artist actually owns that story themselves as well. So that's the storytelling piece. And then those are hopefully the pieces that get sent out worldwide, or telling the story of Empty Space and the Impact Festival. They do an awesome job, but if we can get a writer who perhaps has connections or ties to other communities to be able to tell the story, that's what we're aiming for.
So, and I'll just add another comment to that. I mean, if you, there's a couple of things. Kafka's going to be in the same position. I mean, the storytelling and the kinds of things that will happen on Grand Social are things that they can't do. I mean, they will tell you, and I've been to their AGMs and so on, that one of the first things that they cut in order to provide a bigger and better festival is their marketing and promotion budget. They'll take money from that fund to actually work on the exhibits. And that's, that's the problem, the structural problem in all of this. So the storytelling will start to advance something, not the week before Kafka happens, but there's a public education process that has to happen about contemporary art, as a for instance. I mean, that's a pretty funny thing for most people, right? So if it's going to be an internationally acclaimed festival, then you got to do a lot of work to get that story out there. On a similar note, you're dealing with, I think, some funding or conversation around advancing velocity here. So there's not enough storytelling about velocity and the things that are happening there, both in the garage and in the foundry, publicly. I mean, that's out there for the world to consume. And we have any number of those opportunities that occur week to week and month to month that we just don't do a good job about. And there's a string of pearls from, Cambridge right on through Kitchener and Waterloo that we miss, and the LRT and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to, I'm going to just move to another city, be, where Shopify is going to locate and so on, but I will take the intersection of Urban Caroline. You don't want to dump 90 diplomats out on the street on that corner without, some imagination of what goes on, the kind of, global thought leadership that happens there. And it's happening here. I mean, look at the innovation district that you have right here in Kitchener and the kind of crazy things that are happening that most of the world don't know about, and we don't tell the story. I would suggest that most of the people resident in our city don't know about. These are the opportunities we're looking to amplify.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Inez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in. This is seems like your farewell kind of party. I guess this might be one of the last times we see you up here with regards to CEI. My question is sort of along the lines that Mayor Verbanovich was heading, and to me, I think Grand Social is an asset. So to me, there is a dollar value to that, and that's with Grand Social, and it comes with their Twitter account, everything else. Do you even have, like, I guess, an evaluation of what that is worth?
What it's worth.
Yes.
Interesting. So that's a very interesting question. I don't think we've quantified it. It has some brand equity for sure. I mean, it's not all things to all people yet. But I could certainly, ask some of those questions. I mean, we've got the experts at the table now that can probably answer that.
Yeah.
Andrew, who was here the other week, who we didn't get a chance to listen to, can probably be instrumental in some of that.
Because, you've been in a couple of years of operation with Grand Social, and the brand name in itself, it resonates within the community to some point, and I think to wind down that operation would be throwing away the investment that the communities have put in. So that's how I kind of look at it. Sorry, that's kind of a comment.
Right.
That's all the questions that I really have for today. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola?
Most of my questions have been answered by you already, but do you have any inkling of how the region and Waterloo are thinking about this?
Yes, I can tell you it's contained in the staff report going tomorrow, sort of unequivocally. I believe that the support's there. I think it's already in our conversations with Cambridge there. It's in their budget, which is moving through. We're at Waterloo tonight at 6:30 or so. So I think there's support in 3 municipalities, in the region and in Cambridge and Waterloo.
I mean, we're in a real quandary here. It's a question of, do we end things now, save $90,000, or do we put in the last 90 and go forward? Is there one thing you could do to convince me so that I could convince the person on the street as to why we've kept this alive for another session?
So,
Okay, point of clarification, Mayor Rabinovich.
Sorry, just because it's actually, if I understand correctly, it's 46 that we're talking about, because the rest that's being recommended would go into the Tier 2 funding.
correct.
That is correct.
Yeah, which is consistent with the Birdsall report, and that's an important point. The money that's been allocated or dedicated previously to arts and culture is being returned to your funding model for distribution.
Regardless, okay, that softens the question up a little bit.
So Councillor Gazzola, you asked me for one reason. Here it is. On the way through the years that we've, all sort of fought to get this agenda alive, you've worried about redundancy and things like that. So you've made those comments previously. The one reason that I'll give you is that the board has taken the responsibility, with regard to changes in leadership and so on, and at the present time have said, we know that this is an operation that should not look for continued municipal and regional funding on a go-forward basis. We need to complete this part of the agenda, and that's why the board is responsibly, I think, making the declaration that that's where they're at, and the best move that they can make is to take that responsibility to these chambers and ask you for the support for 1 year.
And do you think that can happen, that it can go forward?
I'm absolutely. I wouldn't be here, without that sort of confidence. I think the board's committed to it, and with the right level of funding, we'll get the right staff. This implies several different hires, and the conversations we have had already are pretty much aligned. There's some ambition about where this belongs, because the two priorities we're talking about now are in a regional context. Like, I mean, not that you're not part of that, but they're, as opposed to us diving into our first year's work in arts and culture, and being a supportive kind of enabling kind of organization in the back, it's not the same agenda at all. It's sort of at a slightly different level. So I'm absolutely confident on behalf of the board that that's the right move. And I think taking the responsibility to declare that it shouldn't continue is the reason I give you why you should support it.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thank you, Roger and Debbie. I want to ask, I apologize for missing the beginning of your presentation. If you get full funding, will both of you be filling the roles of each of the halftime directors?
Yes and no, yes and yes. So yes, I mean, to Debbie's point, I mean, she's a key part of this, and she's definitely in there. The priority two, I mean, we have some ideas in our mind that I'm not at liberty to get back to you on until after the board meeting on Friday. But the reason we split it is we wanted to make sure that we dedicated time to each of the objectives. I think it's incumbent on us to find some other support to round that out. I mean, because now we get down to brass tacks, and you're very astute. You're not going to accomplish what you need to with the kind of talent that you need at $45,000 a year, right? So that's also why we're looking for a private sector host to kind of make sure we're not paying administrative costs and rent and those kinds of things. So I've got to get back to you on that,
That's fair.
right?
Yep. Okay.
So because the talent we need is twice that
Right.
in any of those given positions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, for second round, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, part of my question was answered or asked through Mayor Vranovich about the resources and the assets that CI has been able to accumulate through its operations. And you've already referenced that the biggest component of that is Grand Social. Obviously, it's clear that this is a transitioning period for 2016 that you're proposing. But I see these two things. One is transitioning, and the other is also expanding. Why can't we just look at transition and preservation of that website and other resources and not expand? Work with the successes that have been accomplished through CEI and transition that out to whoever is able to carry that on. Can that not be done at a lesser cost than what's being projected? So don't broaden the scope, don't expand it, don't bring in further content, further broaden the website. Just kind of capture what's already there and find a community partner that could take that on and continue on carrying that asset.
So you're asking about whether you're going to be asked for support on an ongoing basis, but in another form? Is that?
No, I'm just saying, look, from the report and the conversation that it's already taken place, I'm hearing two things. One, in 2016, there will be a transitioning period.
Correct.
Where CI will not exist. Right. On top of it, the part of that transitioning is finding a community partner that can carry on some of the stuff that has been going on, website and some of the other content as well.
Correct.
Beyond that, I'm also hearing that the website will be further strengthened, additional content will be included, and more experiences, storytelling from what you were saying. Does that need to be done? Can at a lesser cost, can you transition and look for a community partner to carry the website and other content that already exists with the organization, as opposed to further expansion of the mandate or the website or the content? That's what I'm asking.
Why don't you make a comment first?
Okay. So I would say, again, I just go back to the research and the community engagement that we heard, and that there might be interests along the way. There's several people who might be, organizations who might be interested in taking it, but there's work that needs to be done first. So for the sake of the arts community,
so that's what they're saying, we won't take it on.
They're not saying they won't take it on, but those conversations have to happen. But there's nobody right now that we can say January 1st, here you go, without having some cost associated to build it in the right direction. So what we heard is, in the research, is you've had a pie, you've cut it into 50 pieces. It's time now to focus and be more meaningful in the work that you do. And we want you to do that by focusing on Grand Social, because it's important to the artists and the arts community as well as residents. And that's what we're saying. We need some time to move that forward in that direction and have the conversations with the people the organizations who would be interested.
And apologize for being crass with my example. And I'm talking about cutting the pieces of the pie and putting in the refrigerator and just paying for the electricity, as opposed to sweetening the pie further. And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Can the other not be looked at, or that's not on the table?
I would say no. I think it will die, honestly. Right. That's my
Fair enough.
feeling.
Had to be asked.
Okay.
I'm going to jump. We are in second round. I'm going to ask some of my questions now, especially since they're along the same lines as Councillor Singh's. And I apologize. As mentioned, I have a lot of respect for what the original vision was, but we have to do our job here. On the grand social piece especially, that's that one priority that concerns me. Grand Social, I've done a bit of research myself. The website itself is very few people go to it. I just did a quick comparison to some other websites, even in the region. The Humane Society is several times higher in terms of page visits. Explore Waterloo Region is several times higher in terms of page visits. And of note, especially on Explore Waterloo Region, they have a tab at the very top of their page that says things to do, which is the precise mandate of that. The Center in the Square is several times higher, as well as the museum. My point and concern is that when I look at this budget, a significant portion of it is hiring web development and social media and design. If the intention is to pass it off, why not pass it off and let whoever gets passed off to do the development? At this point, when there are very few people going to it anyway.
Just clarify Explore Waterloo Region first.
So right now, Grand Social drives Waterloo Region's things to do. So if you click on that, you'll actually be taken to Grand Social's site. So it's a very complementary relationship that we have with them that feeds through. And so that is a perfect example of what this website can do for others as well. And we've talked about it feeding other, whether it's the municipalities, or whether it's other websites themselves to help drive that kind of traffic to them. So that's one example. I would also argue that, again, we haven't spent a lot of money on it because we've been focused on so many things over the last 3 years, which is maybe why, what we're suggesting now, why we need to spend a little bit more time and focus and resources on it to grow it. It has only been since 2013, so it's still what we call in its beta form pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and
to be fair, I do recall, I remember hearing media, radio advertisements for grandsocial.ca, so there was some money spent on marketing. Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So I was just going to add that the whole conversation that's going on right now is, to your point, how we aggregate other technologies into Grand Social. And again, the motive here is not simply about events or tourism, it's about talent. And the engagement that we want with the demographic or a particular constituency that we want to have enabled on that site. So your point is well taken, and we've heard it, and in fact that came out in the research as well. So the project in front of us is to address exactly what you're making a point of.
Okay, thank you. I'll continue. Councillor Etherington?
Questions of staff, Mr. Chair.
Oh, question of staff. Okay, Councillor Schneider, question of staff or the delegation?
Delegation?
Delegation, please.
Just a quick question. I forgot. As we wind down, let's say this goes forward at the end of 2016, what kind of wind down costs will we be looking at? Will there be severance packages and things like that?
No, we've dealt with all of those. There are none. I think we just cashed out the photocopier now.
Okay.
So,
okay. Thank you.
No, we've protected all of that.
Councillor Fernandez?
Well, we're doing them at our office.
Just one question, only because it's come up a number of times on a board I sit on. Well, Watson House and Gallery is one of our entities. Have you ever reached out to them, or are you in this year of sort of finishing off and tying up loose ends, just focusing on the things that you're working on now and doing that? I mean, I guess I have a sense that there have been lots of small groups that have come to you and you've reached out to them, but I don't get the sense that Homer Watson House and Gallery has ever had that connection. And maybe it's a redundant question at this point in time, but...
Okay. So that's exactly what we're talking about with this budget, is putting more experts, more community people out there to better understand what more organizations are doing to be able to amplify that work and work with them to tell those stories. So it's just a different staff complement that we're presenting.
Okay. I apologize if it just seems like a redundant question. It just came to me while I was listening to the answers you were giving.
Yeah, and I think in some instances, there have been some of those conversations. We've done a lot of work with Clay and Glass, for instance. And many of the smaller organizations, like we're in pretty serious conversations with KWMP right now, around their future and the assets, and actually in alignment of the performing arts cluster. So yes is the answer. It's again how much staff we've got, and again, largely what we're doing with this budget is saying we need the talent to drive the agenda, right? It's service driven.
I get that. Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, there are no further questions. Thank you very kindly for coming in your presentation. Questions of staff now. Councillor Etherington, you were queued in first.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions so I got it straight in my head. Mr. Regier, the amount of money we're talking about at the moment is $46,805. Is that correct?
Mr. Gear.
That's correct.
And I wanted to ask you why you're recommending option A. Why not option B? Because I'm quoting you in both options. The second paragraph in the first option on page 3-4. But it's in both options, and I think it's important. Quote, is consistent with investing in small emerging arts organizations which were the intended recipients of the former Arts Sustainability Fund, $44,000 projected. That is in both of those options. Would you not think that option B would be better at doing that quote that I just read?
Well, I guess in our report, we're thinking that essentially, the redirection of the arts sustainability funding towards Tier 2 is satisfying that particular conclusion, or supports that conclusion. If we were to direct the entire grant allocation to the Tier 2 arts organization recipients, it's conceivable that there would be a larger impact in those organizations. But we do. The reason we've come up with support for option A is that we do actually agree with the analysis that there is merit in thinking through and supporting this transition process systematically so that we don't lose what's been gained so far, and also that what we've got can be refined and enhanced in its functionality and effectiveness.
Okay, my other question, mostly as a lifetime journalist, but this is the kind of stuff that throughout this whole subject has really troubled me. I'm going to read you on page 3-4. It says, for the second strategic priority, economic development staff would review placemaking options parallel to city's current vitality agenda. Can you tell me what that means?
Well, I think that what we're saying is that we do have a vitality agenda, and we would be looking at ways of enhancing that and responding to the decision of council. We don't want to lose the placemaking. Placemaking is important to the city. We saw some fantastic placemaking out in City Hall this last weekend with that particular event, with the Chris Kendall Mart. We want to continue to do that, and we'll figure out what to do if council, depending on what council's decisions.
You have to excuse
Mr. Wilmer to add?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Wilmer to add?
Just to add to what Mr. Regier has said, we're conscious of the fact that for staff, for council, for the community, nobody wants to be duplicating the efforts of another organization. And so in order to assure you that we're not wanting to create an initiative that we're duplicating or duplicates what we're doing, we would work in parallel with it. We hear all the time from council that we should look for community partners and leverage their efforts to magnify what we're doing. This is an example of that the community partner, whether it's CEI or the organization that takes over this initiative, would be eligible to receive senior level of government funding that we're not, or would be able to leverage private sector donations that we're not. So by working in partnership with them, we can do more than if we did it ourselves.
I understand that, Mr. Wilmot, but you'll have to excuse me, I've got a built-in detector on these kind of words. Throughout this entire subject, I've constantly been amazed at the language that has been used. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I have one question. Supposing that I was inclined to provide some support but think that the amount is too high, and say, hypothetically speaking, a member of council moved $10,000 less, so $36,000, would it be appropriate to, at this point, in terms of art spending, to apply any amount that came out of, say, $10,000 to the MT space, for example, which was just given, we just gave staff direction to? No, I'm just asking if it were moved, if the amount was lessened, is this funding source appropriate to fund something like MT space if it were to come back? That's my question. I just want to make sure I'm not mixing funding sources. Councillor Gazzoli, you want to answer my question?
Whatever they want with
Yeah,
that.
and I'm asking about the appropriateness, because we sometimes apply from one budget to another that's inappropriate. Mr. May. Oh, Mr. May, first, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to be honest, I mean, Council's just passed the motion, but it is likely our intention to come back for next week to say that what Council should do is just simply take $10,000 from the Tier 2 pot and give it, move it to Tier 1 and give it to empty space. And so this money we're talking about, the $44,000, I think it is, would simply replenish that plus $34,000 more.
Okay, gotcha. Now, okay, are these all comments or questions, Councillor Singh?
It's a kind of a question.
Question?
It was relatively a question to staff, but you kind of asked it before I did. It was to ask them consideration of if we reduced the asked amount and what would be what can be used the difference for. But I think so. I'll make my intention known. I am planning on making an amendment motion. I think we're in line in thinking that. It's not to say that nothing should be given. I think if a reduced amount could still give the organization an opportunity to leverage those funds to ensure that Grand Social is passed on appropriately to another organization. So I'll make that amendment afterwards.
Okay. So, sir, you're moving the motion with the $10,000 less dollar amount. Is that what you moved?
15
for $15,000.
Yeah.
$15,000.
So it'd be 20. Yeah.
Okay. Is everyone in the queue for comments or questions? No. Councillor Anandis' comments. I know Mayor Verbanovich, comments or questions? Mayor Verbanovich, comments?
Sorry, I just want to be clear because has Councillor Singh now moved a motion or moved an amendment? Because he started off by moving an amendment.
Nobody moved the motion yet,
Okay.
so he amended the motion and moved it. No, Councillor Singh moved an amended motion. Yeah.
Okay, so is the amount that you're suggesting that you're moving would be that the 46 would now only be 31,805?
Correct.
Just to make it easier, I think it'll be better if it's 25,000. I'm moving that the grant that's given is 25,000. So the reduced amount is whatever the math is.
So you're reducing it by, you've gone from 10 to
16,
15 to 20.
I never said 10, Mr. Mayor. It was Chair who had said
calls.
10, and I had said my inclination was to go 15. But to make the math a little bit easier, you're right. I think I'll recommend 16,205, which would make it 25,000 for CEI.
16,000. Sorry, just let me catch up here. 16,805. Okay, we're going to go in order here, guys. So.
Sorry, so the amount being moved is how much? 30,000.
Yes, 30,000 for
30,000.
CEI, and
That's
then
right.
the remainder to be determined.
The rest of Tier 2.
The rest is Tier 2, Councillor Singh?
Does that need to be decided now? I don't
No,
think so.
it does not. It's your motion.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I don't think now is the time. I think refer to budget. So.
Oh, okay. It would.
So the 44 would go to tier 2. Your difference of 16,805 is going to budget, and 30 would go to CEI.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm seeing from staff too. So it's tier 2. It needs to go somewhere.
In that case, tier 2.
Okay. Staff clear on that? Okay, Mayor Verbenovich.
So I will move an amendment to the original amount and speak to it briefly. If the amendment fails, I'll obviously support the motion that's there. And I will because for two main reasons. Number one, and a number of members of council sat recently at the Richard Florida event, where we heard about the kinds of things we need to do, and that cities that are responding to the new economy and trying to attract talent and retain talent, we heard about the kinds of things that we need to do. And CEI just spent a great deal of effort and dollars in terms of talking with the arts community and said, okay, if we're going to do anything else, what does it need to be in order to meet the community's needs? And they came back with these two recommendations. And so I'm willing to support them going forward so that we can maximize the value coming out of these assets going forward, see them transition to some other organization in the future, and allow us to continue to build, particularly in areas such as the placemaking, which we know are important if we want to build the kind of city that we're talking about. And so I'm appreciative of all the work that CEI has done, particularly over the last year and a bit during this transition phase. And I think we should support it through to its conclusion at the end of 2016.
Okay. Sorry, I missed the very, very first part. So the point was you were going to support the original recommendation by
an amendment to the higher amount.
To staff's recommendation?
Yes.
I don't think you can do that. That would be contrary.
How's that contrary?
Oh, sorry, I guess it wouldn't because this was never moved in the first place. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. But just to clarify, it would have been contrary if the original motion was moved and Councillor Singh amended. Okay, keeping track. So through the queue, Councillor Ioannidis, we're in comments now.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I'm inclined to support the original recommendation, which is now the mayor's recommendation. I just want to remind my two esteemed colleagues on Economic Development Advisory Committee. One of the issues that we've constantly heard through that advisory committee was, I don't know what to do in this city. How do we do that? Where do we need to go? And et cetera. And then we have this report that Overlap has produced and the other report that's produced. It's definitely clearly a need that the community is in need for. So, I mean, instead of just throwing away some of the assets that have been occurred, I mean, I think we still need to move forward with this asset. I think it has tremendous value. As far as the costs of where the costs are going to be, I think it does need a rebranding. It needs a refreshing, but I think when you do that, move that forward to a new organization, wherever it's going to land, I think it will be in the right place where it needs to be. And if it was for us to take on as a municipality, as the mayor always states, it'll cost us 3 or 4 times more than what it would cost a third-party organization to operate. So I think this aligns with our economic development strategy in many efforts. So I mean, no one wants to not want to invest in something like this that they think is not going to go anywhere, but I think the reality is it will go somewhere. It is something that is needed in many ways because, again, I've heard it through artists, I've heard it through other corporations, I've heard it through many others, and including from out-of-town guests. I think I can recall from a member from the Austin, Texas here in the summer who referred to what else is there to do in the city, and I think we referred him to Grand Social. So I mean, there's many examples out there that why this is needed. And I think to not want to give them completely the funding and just give them half the funding wouldn't do it justice, and it wouldn't be a benefit to the amount of dollars that this municipality and several other municipalities have put forward to. So I know I talked a lot, but I will be supporting the recommendation.
Wow, 1.5 seconds remaining. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, when this issue first came to council about 6 years ago, I was supportive in that I agreed that more money should be going to the arts and culture. But then for 5 years in a row, I voted against it because the money wasn't going where I thought it should be going to help the smaller organizations. I did support this recently to carry on for 2015 so this organization could carry on till at least the end of the year. I'm satisfied now that there's been a lot of hard work put into this organization. I'm prepared at this point to support the staff recommendation, the full amount. There has been an awful lot of work put into it, and I commend the organization for really sitting down, looking at itself and saying, we can't go in this direction, we have to move off into another direction. But we've invested a lot investment by volunteers in our community. People that we're coming out. I believe there's such a thing as goodwill and an asset. There's a lot of goodwill here. It's a tremendous asset, and from what I hear, they feel that it can be saved and we can build upon it. So I would urge everyone to support it the way it is and not try to nickel and dime and cut it back.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think anybody in relation to CEI is nickel and diming. There's a lot of loot involved here. I'd like to see us cut the remaining money to creative enterprise initiatives and use it for where it's supposed to go, to small arts, cultural groups, like the one we heard from earlier, the empty space. CEI was... Councillor Gazzola's right, and he used to preach that gospel. He's right when he says it was formed to help those smaller groups. Now we've got a letter, as it's being phased out, we've got a letter to Mr. Wilmer, November 26th, where we talk about 6 staff, including 2 directors, 1 coordinator, 1 researcher, 1 curator, 1 student, and a bunch of writers, who will be on staff for this year as we phase it out. I mean, give me a break. This is going to cost a total $278,750. Imagine what we could do with that money. In fact, CEI's budget for the entire year is going to be a staggering $317,205. I think CEI is an emperor with no clothes. I can no longer, I've said this before, I can no longer stand by and watch small arts and culture groups suffer while we continue to pump money into CEI. The most recent $54,000 for a consultant's review. No, I'm not going to support that. And I will support Councillor Singh's motion.
Councillor Marsh.
I think it's short-sighted to say that this money is not going to be important to invest in a way to promote all the little gems in our community in a better, more substantial way. I do support Mayor Verbenovic's amendment, and I would like to see us encourage CEI in 2016 to really look at how it can capitalize on all of its connections and supporters to see the 2 areas of priority, land in a good place. If we cut it off now, one year before it plans to be winding down, then all of that capital, all of that we have invested in for years would be lost. All of that knowledge that they hold about all the organizations and what they're doing, they have learned a lot, and let's let them use those learnings and find a good home for each of the two priorities. It would never make sense to cut them off now.
Councillor Singh?
Some of the comments, I'm not saying I find it's humorous, but it makes me take pause a little bit, because we're talking about a reduction here. We're not talking about cutting anyone off. We're not talking about not investing in our arts and culture community. We're not talking about not being conscientious and observant of what we heard from Richard Florida. We're still investing significant dollars, $30,000. Every dollar counts, and this is $30,000 into an organization that we have been investing for the last 4 years, and far more dollars than what we're doing right now. 5 years. Thank you. The reason why I looked at reduction is because I think we need to be fair and balanced. A group came before us, and no, there's not an unlimited amount of pots somewhere we can grab money, figure it out, something. We need to be fiscally responsible and figure out clearly where that money is going to come from. And this is an avenue that it can come from. There's an organization that came forward that's an arts organization that's committed to this community, that provides a lot of benefit to our multicultural, diverse community as it's growing outside of other arts and culture organizations, that is in serious need of additional capital as well. They fit into the arts and culture scheme. They matter just as much as CEI. They contribute and commit to this growth of economic development in this community just as much. And I thought that this may be an avenue where we can commit some dollars to them and balance that priority. That's why I'm reducing it by $16,250 and still allocating $30,000, which I think is still a substantial amount, which would allow them to commit and to the mandate that they put forward, and will not diminish their capacity. The rest is just rhetoric.
Councillor Galway-Seelock?
Everyone's getting a little heated over this issue, and I think it's interesting, actually, that we can get this passionate about arts and culture. So I just wanted to say that the way the recommendation's been worded, we have the ability to take $44,000 that we used to invest in creative enterprises for them to assist small and mid organizations. And that's going to go back to small and mid-sized organizations. So we have $44,000 that's being taken off the table already. And we get to put that back into our grant system that we specifically can then allot to these organizations. Then we have $46,000, I'll say 47 rounding up, that is a good investment into assisting the small and mid-sized arts organizations through Grand Social, which just happens to be through the Creative Enterprise Initiative, still named that, right? For one more year, which provides these small to mid-sized organizations, arts organizations, with marketing. It's a region-wide approach, and it also assists in our economic development. I think that's actually a pretty small number in the benefits that a lot of organizations are going to have, because we can't allot that much amount in marketing to each of our arts organizations. This is one way we can pool it all together and assist them to help pumping their events and their needs out there into the community. And so I think it's an important piece of infrastructure that we have that we need to invest in so that it can be properly handled and properly passed over so that we still have that asset moving forward. And so I just want to, I'm going to repeat myself, but there's $44,000 that are going back to arts organization. That's a huge win for our arts organization. Plural.
Okay, I will comment as well. I certainly take an amount of offense that somehow reducing this is against the ideas of Richard Florida, et cetera, and the arts and culture scene. That is specifically why my comments were geared towards any funding coming out of this would go back specifically to arts and culture. I'm a little bit struck by how much things have changed, because I absolutely respect that CEI tried. They did their best. But the reality is that by metrics, certainly the metrics that I was most concerned with, there was failure. This organization started, the two main things I was interested, well, there was three main things, but the two key ones were they were going to raise significant amounts of funding that would offset municipalities. That didn't happen. It didn't come close to the goals. It didn't even come close to targets. The second one was getting into the nitty-gritty with arts organizations to try and help them perform better. Well, we found out that arts organizations aren't interested in a third party trying to make them better. What we're looking at now is a completely different mandate with one asset, Grand Social, which, again, I can't understate how it's underutilized it is. And if we're going to revitalize it, it should be under the new management. No one's saying that this should be cut off at the knees now. There are definitely assets there that need to be continued. But $317,000 to wind down? I'm sorry, but some of those funds should go to the small arts and culture organizations. I will not be supporting Mayor Verbanovich's amendment, and I will be supporting Councillor Singh's. I haven't heard for a recorded vote, but I'm assuming that's in order. Okay, so we will vote first on the amendment, which is Mayor Verbanovich to allocate $46,000, essentially staff's recommendation. Councillor Marsh, I have you in the queue. Okay, you don't comment after the chair.
Okay.
Unless you have an amendment or something.
Well, people were getting tired and ready for a break.
A little cranky, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The word of the day. So I just want to clarify that I wasn't trying to put down other councillors around the horseshoe. I'm just getting, I think we're all getting a little heated and passionate about this topic, but it's by no means did I mean any offense to anybody.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, so recorded vote's been called, and again, it's on Mayor Verbanovich's, which is essentially staff's recommendation. Those in favor? And opposed? That carries on a 6-5 vote. Okay, on a more positive note. Oh, pardon me. Yes, sorry. We have to take a vote on the motion as amended. That's right. And recorded vote as well, yeah. The motion is amended, so basically staff's recommendation again. We voted on, okay, so yeah, this is where it gets a little confusing. So Councillor Singh moved a motion that was different than staff's recommendation. So Mayor Verbanovich moved an amendment to that amount, which was back to staff's recommendation. So we only voted technically on the $46,000 part. Now we have to vote on basically the rest of it. As amended. Yes. It's fine. Right, yeah. Okay, has everyone voted? Looks like not everyone's voted. Those in favor? And opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, with that behind us, we are moving on to an item I'm particularly excited about. Item number 4, the expansion of the University Waterloo Velocity Program in downtown Kitchener. We will have a brief staff presentation on this. Mr. Bennett? When you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Davey and members of committee. We are pleased to introduce the first initiative of our Make It Kitchener strategy, the expansion and investment in the University of Waterloo's Velocity programming in downtown Kitchener. Velocity is an entrepreneurship program at the University of Waterloo which consists of two components. The first is on-site research and development for students on the campus of the University of Waterloo, focused on idea discovery. The second is when the students graduate from university, they move on to the Velocity programs in downtown Kitchener, which are focused on commercialization and business programming to support graduate startup companies. The program for entrepreneurs downtown is free, does not take any cash or equity or intellectual property rights from the startups, which is contrary to most accelerator and incubator programs. Velocity does disperse grants of up to $250,000 annually to the startups. Startup companies currently incubate up to 2 years in the facilities downtown. In downtown Kitchener, Velocity currently has 2 programs with 7,000 square feet in the tannery focused on software startups, which has been in operation for the past 4 years, and 11,000 square feet at 45 Charles Street, focused on hardware and life sciences startups for the past 1.5 years. With Google's move to the Bright block, November 30th, this has freed up 80,000 square feet in the tannery, creating the unique opportunity to house all of Velocity's startup activities under one roof. Last week, Google announced their partnership for a portion of the space with Communitech to expand the Google for Entrepreneurs program and Women in Technology initiatives. Under the arrangement, Velocity will expand to 36,000 square feet in the tannery, doubling their footprint in downtown Kitchener under a 5-year lease arrangement. Velocity will benefit from having software, hardware, and life sciences programming under one roof, which provides a robust connected community offering more collisions and both formal and informal peer-to-peer mentorship. They, in other words, will make things happen. Our $500,000 investment will assist with the upfront capital cost around both equipment and leasehold improvements. The most important component is the build-out of a wet lab, which will be the first in downtown Kitchener and is in limited supply across the region. This will enable the growing life sciences programming to expand and also augment the programming at the School of Pharmacy and the School of Medicine, both located downtown. We have incorporated a clawback provision of $100,000 per annum should Velocity relocate from the tannery prior to the conclusion of their 5-year lease, and they have assured us that they will not be leaving. Without our investment, Velocity will not have the resources to invest in the wet lab, a much-needed asset downtown, which would adversely impact the growth of life sciences startups within the program. They would also need to defer acquiring a 3D printer and the creation of open space. The new space will allow Velocity to expand their programming from 65 startups to in excess of 100 startups, making Velocity the largest free startup incubator in North America. With the emerging research and growth in the Internet of Things, we envision more startup activity on the hardware and life sciences side. Waterloo Region has the highest density of startups outside of Silicon Valley. Over the past 4 years, Velocity has helped to create 800 jobs with external investments of $250 million in these startup companies. 61% of the companies remain in Waterloo Region once they leave the Velocity programming, with a 66% survival rate after 4 years compared to the business or industry average of 48%. There is also a multiplier effect of 5 jobs for each job created in the tech sector, which would benefit our service, hospitality, and retail sector. The university will be responsible for ensuring Velocity funding for the downtown Kitchener operating programming over the next 5 years of $10 million. In comparison, our capital investment is 5% of the overall program cost over 5 years. This would be our first investment in the Velocity program. We view this investment very similar to the investment we made in Communitech 5 years ago and the catalytic impact that it had on the downtown, on the startup community, on the creative economy, and just the buzz and energy that's emanating from the hub. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. There are quite a few people in the queue with questions, starting with Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bennett, I guess my one question is just kind of overall, why are they want to locate in Kitchener?
They want to be part of the downtown ecosystem that's evolved over the last 5 years since Communitech expanded in the Tannery. And they want to be near other creative, like-minded companies where they can have those collisions, they can share ideas, they can present a problem, and it may not be their company that solves that problem. It could be a company 3 or 4 desks down from them. They want to take advantage of that ecosystem.
Okay, so the ecosystem in itself is the main driver, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Chair, when it's appropriate, I'm prepared to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Mayor Rabinovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the report, Brian. A couple quick additional questions. On the issue of life sciences and this being sort of the new focus of, I guess, of this Velocity expansion, will this really start, I guess, open the door to the first sort of commercial kind of addition we're seeing to our investment to the School of Pharmacy? I know that when we built that was envisioned that at some point we would start seeing investment in the life sciences area. And is this really going to be what opens the door to that then?
We believe that it is. Due to a number of things. First, the proximity to both the School of Pharmacy and the School of Medicine. And there is much more interest in life sciences, the life sciences component of hardware. And actually the creative community believes that is going to be one part of the hardware going forward that is going to have significant investments, especially around life sciences.
Second question, I guess, just has to do with Google's willingness to work with presumably Communitech and Velocity in terms of making this happen. Is this a signal or a sign from them in terms of beyond their own investment expansion of their own business in how they see the overall ecosystem developing and the growth potential that it has?
Yes, Google has been very supportive of the ecosystem downtown, certainly with investments that they've made directly, but also more from the standpoint where they're assisting other companies. They'll provide the use of their facilities or services, complimentary if necessary. But Google is of the mindset that if another company benefits within the region and within the ecosystem, everybody's going to benefit.
And I guess the last question I have is just with respect to the University of Waterloo component, and with the fact that they have at different points in time there's been different debate in terms of how much of Velocity should be downtown versus up on the campus and so on. Does this expansion sort of further cement that this is really the place where a good part of that startup ecosystem from the U of W Velocity end should be, and help solidify it for the future?
Yeah, they've come to the mindset and the realization that research by students will be conducted on the campus up at the University of Waterloo. But when you get to the next stage, which is commercialization, then this is where the ecosystem is to help support that, both through peer interaction and mentorship and just the collisions that I spoke to earlier.
And that's indicative, typically, where these ecosystems happen. They tend to happen in the central cores of cities when we look at other cities that have them, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
I have a number of questions. The first one is, does the City of Kitchener lease any space at the tannery?
No, we do not.
Who leases this space?
Who leases Velocity space?
Yeah, who's leasing this space that we are going to do our leasehold improvements on?
Velocity will be leasing that space.
And Velocity is who?
The University of Waterloo.
Okay, so the University of Waterloo is the tenant, and
they will be subleasing from Communitech.
From Communitech. Does Communitech own the space?
No, Communitech will be subleasing from Google.
I need a program to see that.
Sorry, it's so I didn't mean to make it so complicated.
Is Velocity the University of Waterloo? Is it a separate corporation?
No, it's the University of Waterloo.
It's the University of Waterloo. Yeah. How did we arrive at $500,000?
That's the cost of both the capital equipment and the leasehold improvements in the new space.
For the new space, is there space there already?
Yeah, there's 11,000. I'm sorry, there's 7,000 square feet in the tannery that they currently occupy.
That's there already. We're going to add how much to it?
So we're going to add 29,000 square feet to it.
And the cost of that is $500,000.
That's correct.
What is that made up of? Do we have any details?
Yes, we do. That would a large portion of that would be the wet lab, which there would also be a 3D printer. There would be clean rooms that would have to be erected, and also to open up the space more to provide more collisions between the various companies that are in there.
So who are these assets going to belong to? They're leasehold improvements. We don't lease it, so I guess if they go anywhere, they go to the university, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. The University of Waterloo spends $2 million a year there. What do they spend $2 million a year on?
A large portion of it is the rent for the space. And then also there would be salaries to provide the programming.
Do we have any of all that information? Or?
Yes, I have more detailed information.
Which you can share with us?
Sure.
Because you're asking us to be partners with the University of Waterloo, so we need to know all about our partners, right? What if we only donated $100,000?
Then they probably wouldn't build out the wet lab space.
They wouldn't what?
They probably would not build out the wet lab space. And the wet lab space is around $300,000.
What if we didn't donate anything?
Then they wouldn't build out the wet lab space. They would continue to contract 3D printing, and it would slow down the expansion within the tannery.
Now, is this space, is this open to everyone, or?
Yeah, it's open space that people can come into on a regular basis. They probably provide 6 to 7 tours a week throughout the space.
When I looked at their website for Velocity, it said that in order to participate in this space, you have to be a graduate or a student of the University of Waterloo.
You can be a graduate of any university.
That's not what their website says. So I just wondered about
you can be a graduate of any
kids
university.
From Laurier, or
you can be from Laurier, University of Toronto. It can be any university.
Then their website is in error then.
I'll mention that to them.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Councillor Galloway-Seelak.
Just from the tour I went on, just on that specific point, I believe it's only recent that it's been opened up because of a grant that they received. So it may just, their website just may not be updated, but it was a grant that they received, I think, from the province has allowed them to open it up to people outside of the University of Waterloo.
That's helpful, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that you asked that question, Councillor Gazzola, because I was of the same opinion, not that that would have changed my assessment of how we should support this, but definitely makes this even more so why it's important for us to support this. So just kind of clarification on the basics, Brian. So you referenced a couple companies here, Vidyard, Thamlik Lab, Mapton. These are just some in Buffer Box. Now they've graduated and they're coexisting here in downtown Kitchener. But these are companies that have expanded considerable footprint in lease space and number of people they've hired as well, correct?
That's correct.
Do we know, like, between Thamlik Labs and Vidyard at square footage, what it would be, approximate?
Vidyard's new space will be about 29,000 square feet.
Wow.
And Thalmix, I believe, is around 20,000 square feet.
So these were leasehold improvements that these companies made probably through the owners of the building, whoever they may be, and that's increased assessment growth of these buildings and is bringing in additional dollars in tax revenue to the city.
That's correct.
And on top of it, supporting the business community within the core that's struggling right now because of all the construction with the number of hires that they have here in the core.
That's correct.
You didn't reference Quick and Pebble. Did Pebble graduate out of Vidyard? Out of Velocity, or?
Did they? Yes, they did.
And Quick did too. Kick, sorry, not Quick.
Kick, yes.
K-I-K.
Yes, Kick did.
I know the abbreviation of it. So these are companies that are, they may not be in Kitchener, but they're doing phenomenally well, and they are, I think Pebble is now coming back into the core as well.
Yes, it is.
Wow, okay. So some of the space that these companies have taken was old derelict space in the core that wasn't probably being well utilized in the past. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Okay, all right. And you've already said 800 jobs, and we're looking at increasing the capacity from 65, so almost doubling the capacity of an incubator that exists in the core.
That's correct.
So it's easy to say that this is going to have a direct economic result financially, as well as for job growth in the core of City of Kitchener.
Yes, it will.
As one thing that we could say, I maybe make it too easy for you to answer my questions, but if we had to put reference one thing that we could say, if we invest in this, this will absolutely create more jobs and definitely be as an economic development generator for our city. Would this be one thing?
Yes, it would.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Fernandez?
Thanks. So my understanding is that the University of Waterloo will lease the space at the tannery.
That's correct.
Okay. Does the University of Waterloo pay any property taxes at all?
The landlord would pay the property taxes.
No, but does the university space, like the social work building and the
School of Pharmacy?
School of Pharmacy, do they pay any taxes?
Mr. Chapman?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they pay a payment in lieu of tax, which is based on their enrollment, and I believe the current rate is $75 per head.
$75 per head? Okay. Would they be eligible, would the university be eligible for any other downtown incentive grants, facade improvements, or any of the other grants that we have available to them?
Only if they were, it would really be the startup companies that would be eligible for.
Sorry, it'd be really
it would
what?
be the startup companies that would be eligible for the startup landing pad program in second or third story spaces above retail downtown.
So no, though.
But
No.
I'm talking about specifically in the tannery where there's going to be leasehold
No,
improvements.
they would not.
Okay. So through the questions that were asked, I want to make sure that I understood, because you said something about the UFW will be responsible for about $10 million. What would they be putting that money towards, and what's the timeline for that?
That's over 5 years. That would be for operating programming, which would include the rent and the space that they're leasing, as well as salaries, peer-to-peer programs, mentorship.
As you said, you had some of those details, and you would
And
let
I can
us
forward that to you.
Okay. this is a question more for Mr. Chapman. This Economic Development Fund, Reserve Fund, under our reserve criteria for monies that could be used for, what other items would we be able to use that money for? If it wasn't used for this, what other things would we be able to fund?
Mr. Chapman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe its primary purpose is to support the economic development strategy. I believe just as it receives funding from the sale of downtown lands that were formerly parking lots, the funds can also be used to invest in the replenishment of parking within the downtown core.
So replenish parking, would it be used for repairing parking garages and such, that kind of stuff? No? Okay. Did we not hear last week during Capital that the fund, that the Economic Development Reserve is at about $11 million? Was that roughly what I remember, $10, $11 million left in that fund? And you said that there would be no more money going into that fund anymore. Is that correct?
I believe that's the ballpark of the forecasted balance, yes, and you are correct. There is no ongoing source of funding into that account.
Okay, and that's indefinite until council decides that we want to maybe do something else, again, related to economic development.
That's correct, and I believe Mr. Regier has said that it's his intention to work within that balance to support the current strategy, which is a 4-year strategy.
Okay, so this is $500,000 out of that account specifically?
Yes.
Okay. If I was to explain this to the average resident and say, we're taking $500,000 out of it's taxpayers' dollars, and we're going to be helping the University of Waterloo set up a new area called Velocity for their lease improvements and to purchase a 3D printer and set up a wet lab, and so that they can set up this space. Is that correct? Is that what I would be saying to them? Would that be reasonably representation of what we're doing?
From a capital side, yes. But we're investing in the creative economy, which is going to create new startup companies that are going to locate in downtown Kitchener, that are going to benefit the residents of Kitchener through potentially property taxes, utilizing the services. There is a spin-off of 5 jobs for every 1 technology job that's created. So there are significant benefits around the investment.
Okay, I've heard that before. I mean, I understand that. I want to be a little bit of the devil's advocate here, because this is a substantial amount of money, and we're helping the University of Waterloo. Why is the university not going to the province for this? I mean, that's where they get their funding. Why are they not? If they want to grow this, it's part of their mandate for education and academic growth. Why would they not be going to the province for this money instead of the city?
In this case, the province is providing limited support on the operating side.
The province is, so that's the $10 million that you're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay. I guess my other question...
Your time's expired if you want to queue back in.
I will.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Brian, the agreement that you referred to on page 4.5, will council see the content of that agreement? The agreement that says that they'll pay us back $100,000 per year if they move away from the tannery space.
That will be incorporated in the agreement.
I'm sorry, I missed that?
I said, sorry, that will be incorporated in the agreement, and that will be prepared by our legal staff.
And we'll see that agreement?
I don't believe that generally that goes to council.
Mr. Chapman?
Through the chair, that's not customarily our practice, no?
Okay. Well, then I'll just pout about it. It's yet another fabulous proposal in my ward, Mr. Chair.
It's not comment time, Councillor. No, just kidding. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. So I would love to, this is an exciting project, but I don't know why we have such a light amount of information. Like Councillor Gazzola, I'm looking for a bit more details about the finances. So I'd like to know what are the expenses in a breakdown, a bit more of a breakdown, and also what are the other revenue sources, and are the successful businesses that were incubated right there in one of the Velocity sections, are they also kicking back and helping in the investment of this new site for Velocity?
Usually, companies that have graduated don't give back to the program until they've become of scale and they've significantly commercialized their business and their operations. So, for example, KIC did give some money back to the Velocity programming, but that was after they received a substantial investment.
Excellent. And so does any of the money that, or companies like KIC, come back to downtown Kitchener to the Velocity site there in downtown?
Well, the KIC money would be used for operating programming, so that would help new startups be implemented and take effect. Yeah. And when those startups graduate and locate downtown, then they would benefit from that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, maybe it's just context because we've been quibbling over 16,000 and, you know, some very specific dollar figures for an organization just less than an hour ago. And now we're being asked, well, why not just give $500,000, $500,000 without any financial details? We had to have so much more detail from the organizations begging for additional funds. And so I'm unable to support the motion until I see. I would prefer to defer the decision, but if we have to vote on it today, I'm going to have to decline until I see more information.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Just a reminder, we're still in questions at the moment. I have Mayor Verbanovich and Councillor Singh, both questions. Okay, Mayor Verbanovich first.
Sure. Maybe one question. Or maybe a couple questions, and I certainly have lots of comments to make about this. I guess my question to you, Mr. Bennett, is if you can just talk a little bit about the extent of the investments that the city has made and how much they've been leveraged by both other orders of government and the private sector, and what that's meant for downtown Kitchener over the last 3 or 4 years.
So the city's initial investments downtown were the School of Social Work, the School of Pharmacy, and Communitech. And those investments would have been in the vicinity of about $38 million. Rod, you can correct me if I'm wrong. 40. And as a result of that investment, we've now seen further investments, especially during the EDIF time period, of in excess of $800 million downtown. And is it fair to say, like, when we talk about companies like Vidyard and Thalmic Labs and Buffer Box and so on, well, I think you're absolutely correct that these companies need to scale before they get to a point where they can, give back, with huge endowments to the university and so on. But is it not true that some of them already are investing in other startups in the community? So I think of Vidyard as an example. They're already investing in other startups to continue growing the ecosystem. That's correct. There is a domino effect.
And do we have any sense of that? Like how much of that has happened?
I don't have specific stats at this point.
Okay, and finally, is it fair to say that if Communitech and Google and Desire to Learn had not located down here and we started the ecosystem, there was a great story actually written in our daily newspaper about it on the weekend. If that hadn't happened, would we likely not have seen the kind of investment and turnaround that we've seen in the downtown core and the jobs created over the last 4 or 5 years?
They were definitely the catalyst.
Sorry?
They were definitely the catalyst.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Singh, questions?
Yes, thank you. It's just a few quick questions. And I think through this discussion, a lot of information has been supportive of why it's necessary for City of Kitchener to partner with this. Some of the companies that you reference as well, they could go anywhere, correct? They don't need to be here. After graduating, they have the IP that, through their program or work that they did, through their thesis project, they could take that knowledge base and go anywhere in the world with that to start these companies, correct?
That's correct.
And what Velocity is doing is not sure it will be largest in North America as a incubator that doesn't take an equity stake, but this is not uncommon. This is happening in Boston, New York, in Seattle, in San Francisco, in Toronto, Vancouver. This is taking place in all major cities, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we don't support this, then they will seek out wherever opportunities exist elsewhere.
They could look at other ecosystems. That's correct.
Because that ecosystem is it very necessary for these startups in a very early emergent stage for them to have that support so they can mature and monetize whatever knowledge base that they have?
Absolutely.
Okay. Final question. Will we get any recognition? Like, is there going to be like a plaque or something made possible due to the funding from City of Kitchener there? So these guys that are working there, one day, once they become big billionaires, they may say, you know what, City of Kitchener, here's a couple $100,000 or a few $1 million for you guys too.
we will ensure there's recognition.
Okay, all right.
And they want there to be recognition as well.
Okay, good.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yes. So just to continue on my line of questioning, and I mean, you just said that they could locate anywhere else, but the reality is the University of Waterloo is here. They're going to look for some kind of a spot here within the region. Is that not correct? I mean, that's an assumption, isn't it? Reasonable assumption.
All the startup companies, though, that are in Velocity are not graduates from the University of Waterloo.
They're not?
Not all of them, no.
Not all of them. Okay. I was trying to go somewhere with my line of questioning, and I kind of lost a bit of track there. There's the $500,000 is a huge amount of money, and I heard what Councillor Marsh was saying about financials, and I absolutely agree. We need to have a more depth of understanding of this, and I know that there was a tour, and I know some people went on the tour, but I don't understand when you say, we're going to see the benefits. Will we be tracking how many startups and exactly how many jobs and how long will those startups surviving? I mean, sure, 66%, but that's an American number. That's not even a Canadian number. So will we be tracking?
No, there's a Canadian number. It's referenced.
It says here it was
The
American.
Canadian number is 66% for Velocity, 48% for the industry.
It says higher than the U.S. average of 48%.
Yeah, but our number is from Velocity. So that's the actual number from Velocity.
The 66%?
Right.
Okay. I just wish we would have compared it to Canadian startups, I suppose, instead of just American. So the question was, will we be tracking exactly the like for like? This is how many startups, this is how many people are employed there, this is how long this one lasted, whether this one survived or not. Will we be doing that tracking?
Yes, we will. We will be tracking the incubation, the number of people that are in those startup companies while they're in incubation, when they graduate, how many employees they employ when they graduate, and then we'll do some benchmarking beyond that to see the growth around those companies.
And
as
how
well.
many years do we plan on tracking this?
It would be for the life of the investment, which is 5 years.
For the life of and after 5 years, they're going to be on their own? We don't need to invest anymore?
What's going to happen after 5 years will depend on what Google wants to do with that space. If Google decides in 5 years that they want to repatriate that space and take it back, or reduce the amount that they lease to Communitech and subsequently to Velocity, that will be Google's decision, but at this point in time, they haven't made any decision around that.
Oh, that puts an interesting twist on it, really. If they, in 5 years, decide that they want to repurpose that space, then we've put in all this money to redo the leasehold improvements, right? Then what? Isn't that correct?
Well, as I said, at the end of 5 years, we don't know what Google is going to do. They could release it for another 5 years.
Yeah, but there's also the risk that Google may say, you know what, we want to...
Most leases are generally 5 years in duration.
Okay. That just throws another wrench in it. Okay. That's all the questions I have. I have some comments.
Councillor Ioannidis, your question?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask Mr. Bennett, did most members of council attend those tours? Because if you attended the tour, this would have been crystal clear how important this is an investment in the community. Did all
most councillors did,
okay,
yes.
There was no point of, I didn't mention you, didn't refer to you, Councillor Fernandez, and you've been twice already. Councillor Marsh, question?
So just, is it in the 5-year lease that Communitech has, and then that subsequently with Velocity, that we could not have it for the full 5 years, that Velocity would be kicked out sooner?
It'll be a 5-year lease. There won't be an option for renewal.
Is there an option for Google to take it back before? Is it written in that there's an option for Google to take it back before the 5 years are up?
So no. If
Okay.
Google sublets that space for 5 years, then Communitech and Velocity have access to that space for 5 years.
And would you be able to quantify it to any degree how much of the wet lab or equipment that would be included in our investment would be able to then be moved after the 5 years if we needed to move it? Like what value would still be able to?
Probably the majority of it, because they are leasehold improvements within the space, the majority would not be able to be moved.
Right.
Other than the 3D printer, for example,
Yeah.
that could be moved.
Yeah.
And some of the small equipment that they have,
Yeah.
that could be moved.
Okay. And all right, so I mean, and I just to clarify, I did take the tour, and I think it's very important. The Velocity Center, I think it's going to be great. I just think that I would like to see a little bit more shared accountability, for investing in it, not just less details. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Singh, I think are you in for comment? Okay. I have a couple quick questions. For this program, who approached who? Did the City of Kitchener approach University of Waterloo or vice versa?
I would say it came up through conversations that we have been having with Velocity and the University of Waterloo over the last 6 to 8 months.
And to clarify some concerns, how much does the university, what does the university bring in revenue, for example, for this program? Do they have any earnings from the Velocity program at all? The University of Waterloo, do they make any money from what they're investing in their investment?
No,
Okay.
what they bring in, they spend.
Sorry?
What they bring in, they spend on programming.
Okay, so what do they get out of it?
What do they get out of it? They get the benefit of seeing their best and their brightest succeed going forward, and they also are looking at being the largest incubator in North America.
Sure, why not? Councillor Gallo, you like it?
I just want to add to that, being the benefit of the tour, that something was said to me as well as being on the WLU board, and just the attraction to have the Velocity program can help attract students to the University of Waterloo. And all universities right now are struggling to try and attract students to their institution. And so they're all trying to find a variety of ways to assist them. And I think Velocity is one program that assists in getting students to attend the University of Waterloo. So I appreciate you allowing me, just from my knowledge on the board as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Regier, you wanted to add?
Just a brief comment. You know, the University of Waterloo generates an enormous amount of talent, and a significant portion of that talent ends up working for technology companies in Silicon Valley, in Boston, New York, and elsewhere. And the support for startup companies coming out of the University of Waterloo actually is one of our best shots at keeping that homegrown talent, which is actually paid for primarily by Canadian taxpayers, right here generating wealth and creating new opportunity in our city, in our region, and in the province of Ontario. So it's a significant benefit to us to have creative, well-educated minds capturing new opportunities and creating the future right here. In addition, they'll obviously spend significant funds, earn money here, and spend it in our city. My back-of-the-envelope calculation is that the 800 jobs that Velocity companies have created, they're generating salaries in excess of $50 million in our city. So it's a significant benefit to our economy.
Thank you. So no further questions been moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Comments? Mayor Verbenovich, comment?
Thank you, Chair Davey, and I have a lot to say about this one, and I will be wholeheartedly supporting this, and quite frankly would hope that Council wholeheartedly supports this. I think we need to remember that our region has one of the strongest startup ecosystems in the world. In fact, this region has been recognized as having one of the 25 hottest startup ecosystems in the world. And we need to remember that this hasn't happened by accident. It's actually happened as a result of intense collaboration that's existed between the various partners in our region. Local government, provincial government, federal government, the academic sector, the private sector, the not-for-profit sector. And all of that has created an environment that in recent times has been seeing us generate anywhere between 1.5 to 2 new startups a day, a working day in this region. Some succeed, some don't. I'm not just talking about Communitech and Velocity, I'm talking about the overall ecosystem that's primarily in Kitchener and Waterloo. More importantly, it also allows us to grow our STEM sector, science, technology, engineering, and math, which are skill sets that are extremely important if we're going to see Canadian youth prepared for the world that we're moving into, the world of not only tomorrow, but the world of today already. This kind of investment is absolutely key. I ask Council to remind themselves where things were 5 years ago before the players that are in the tannery today moved in there. If we think about where the tech sector ended, it started and ended in the tannery. Since then, it's moved both westwards with a significant investment in the Bright Up block, the new Google building that's going to employ eventually up to 1,000 employees in that building, and eastwards all the way to Queen Street now. And it's been a gradual thing that's happened over the last few years as these companies have grown and hired more people and created new jobs. And so if we want to provide that kind of environment, then this is the kind of investment we have to make. It's a small investment in the whole scheme of things compared to what it's leveraging in terms of other dollars from the university, as well as dollars that Communitech and others are going to get from the province and the feds to grow this even more. We're fortunate that we've had the kind of leadership we have had in the tech sector to get us to this point. It is true. This kind of thing can go anywhere. Universities expand to other cities if they're not getting, for one of two reasons, either because they're not getting the support that they need in their own community, or because they see opportunity to do that because that's where the talent is. So for example, in Hong Kong, and I forget it, I think it's MIT that's going to be opening up a new campus there and starting a startup there. We want to keep that talent in Canada. We don't want to see that talent going down to the States or elsewhere. And the way to do that, and the whole thing that our two-way all-day go, ask, and everything is predicated on, is keeping that talent here, growing it here, and building the kind of future for our youth that we want to see. So I would hope that all members of council support this. Because we can't forget that the University of Waterloo is often recognized as one of the top institutions in this country, particularly when it comes to the technology and information services and engineering area.
Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know what? If anyone were to ask me, why did you support this? Or why did you think this was important? I think my answer would be quite clear to that question. It's because it gives the benefit to allow our best and brightest to succeed. Same as the motto for University of Waterloo. It's an investment in our future that will definitely give back more than we put in. Hands down, it's probably one of the best investments the city of Kitchener could make, because simply, clearly, it will create jobs, it will take or reduce the stress off our tax base, and it will benefit and essentially support our downtown businesses and all businesses in the city of Kitchener and the region as a whole. So based on that, it's clearly a no-brainer, and I will definitely support it.
Councillor Ioannidis?
Yes, thank you, Chair Davey. I think on my short time on council and committee, if there was ever an investment that you want to be involved with, this would be the one, because this is the one that will make the most significant impact in our community with regards to economic development. I mean, having the biotech, life sciences come from their university to downtown, I think is a huge boom for downtown, and particularly the future of the way business is operating. And we're looking at biotech. To me, biotech is you can't get any more recession-proof business than that. And if we can develop and nurture that in our community, that is tremendous. When you factor in companies that graduated from their KIK Interactive, which is what they call unicorn evaluation, which is $1 billion valuation. That recognition alone is tremendous. And then when you have their CEO, Ted Livingston, basically donate back $1 million to this program, there's your private investment already that is pumping into our downtown. The international recognition that this program brings, in particular, is rivaling the gold standard when it comes to incubator and accelerator space, the Y Combinator, which is the one out of San Francisco. And that is tremendous value and why individuals want to come here and stay here in the talent attraction. The 61% of those companies that are in this program stay in the Waterloo region, and it's whatever it is, 15% more than anywhere else in the world with their programs. That says a lot about our ecosystem here. And then one of the things that I noticed on the tour, in particularly, that I made sure to ask was, out of all the companies that are in the Velocity program, how many of them are local? And the answer that I got was very astounding to me. It was pretty well 95% of them are all from out of the country or not from this area. So that to me is telling me this program is working. We're bringing smart and the brightest from outside of our community and bringing them into this community, and 61% of them are managing to stay in this community. I mean, this is tremendous asset to have in this community, and I wholeheartedly support this. I mean, the amount of jobs it'll create is next to 2 startups a day, and they're looking at doubling the amount of startups that can come into this community. I mean, I'm excited that this is here for us to even put our money worth into it. So I encourage all of us to invest in it.
Thank you, Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. I'd say that there have been others on former councils, earlier councils, who showed some vision by supporting similar, very successful proposals. And I would ask this council to show similar vision for this project. It has my complete support, and I believe that it represents a solid investment in Kitchener's future. And it's already been mentioned that the spin-off jobs, the spin-off investment, everything that is attracted in way of real estate, everything to the downtown, that's why it has my support.
Councillor Marsh?
Thank you. Well, I am... I think that as a downtown councillor, what I'm seeing is obviously, really strong arguments to support this motion, and I can be swayed, and I will support this motion. But I would urge staff that going forward, we need more details before the decision-making time. And yes, I could have asked the question, I guess last week, but. I didn't read the report really until the weekend. I'll be honest. I just did not make time to read the full report till the weekend. And then, we see the downtown businesses struggling. Wonderful places like Go-Go Mart or, I shouldn't even name them because there are too many to name, that are trying to market to businesses in the downtown, and to the students who are looking for lunch locations. And we've got these little pockets of people who are ready to work in the downtown, and that's great, but are they actually taking part in the downtown? A lot of them are not, are maybe benefiting one or two businesses that cater to them for lunch, but not necessarily going in a wider scope. Can we, I would like to also have more conversations with staff going forward about the tech businesses in the downtown, and how can we provide them with more tours, give them, insights into all the amazing aspects of the downtown that they will never see if they don't leave their offices. And, we have the arts and culture scene that a lot of people who are coming and working, going in their parking garage, getting into their office, spending all day and then leaving, that they're never ever going to see unless we tie a little bit more expectations onto these people that we're supporting and businesses that we're supporting. Tie a little bit more, expectation to them to say, look, we're going to support you and we are glad you're here, but we would also expect that you come and check out all that we have to offer and be a part of it. We are living in silos in our downtown, and I'm concerned about that.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, this is a real struggle for me because I grew up in a day when all levels of government were given mandates, and it was easier as to who did what. In those days, post-secondary education was a thing that the universities looked after, and they were funded by the province. But along the way came visionaries, and nowadays everything's funded at the local tax dollar, at the local level. And it's unfortunate that I have no brain because I see a lot of issues here. A lot of figures are bandied about, but in this particular case here, we're getting into a $500,000 partnership, and we have 3 or 4 pages of written information. We don't have any other details on what is happening. what it's going to do, what it's going to cost. And it is a downtown thing. I look back and I talk to taxpayers, ratepayers who don't live in the downtown, and I ask, all of this money that we've invested in the past, how has it impacted them over the last 10 or so years? And it's really difficult for people to see that. I know there's all these great things that are happening, but where? And there's so many figures that are bandied about as to the success of this and success of that. I'm not opposed to helping out the universities, but I don't think we need to help them out to the extent that we have in the past and that we're going to continue to be in the future. I mean, I'm hearing it around the table. It's just a no-brainer, and yet, at the same time here, we can't find a few dollars to help our citizens with their utility bills. We don't have money for that. But boy, we want to do everything in the world for our startups who have really changed the world. I don't know. I don't think our world has been all that bad for the last 100 years without all these startups. At this point in the game, I will not be supporting the proposal that's in front of us. I do want to see a lot more information on this agreement. I think council has every right to see all the details of the agreement. That's what we're approving here, and before this passes finally, we deserve to see everything to do with it. And who knows? Perhaps someone can get me to change my mind. But lacking a brain, it's going to be pretty difficult to do.
Councillor Yaneski.
I have been quite impressed with the growth of the tech area around the Tannery and the downtown, and all the development that's been unfolding over the last several years, and the growth of this industry with support of the city back over the years with the Zenith Fund and getting all the various buildings established and universities and their programs, etc., and they've helped out as well. And having had the tour also last week, and I've been on it a few times over the many months, quite impressed. It's just packed in there with people working diligently and their open concepts, and it's very, very impressive, and you can see the growth potential there quite strongly. And I look at the report, and there's also a waiting list of startups trying to get in, and this whole venture of this is basically feeding off itself. It's just moving fast forward, and it's great. It's wonderful. And we have been supporting it all along. But I think it comes to a point that these people can be self-sufficient and operate on their own. And with the universities taking charge, they're the ones that provide that guidance and provide that direction. And that's their responsibility. And I think that's where the issue falls. Having the intent of allocating $500,000 on this venture and this project of expansion, I think it'd be better spent well on the downtown with the problems that we have with the businesses that are suffering as a result of the LRT. Some of them are closing down, some of them are struggling, many of them are. And that's as of right now. We've still got 2 more years of construction still to go, and who knows how many may in the future still close down. That money could be better spent on them. And there's other groups and businesses that would be happy to have this handout for expansion and growth and in their facilities. They would welcome it any time. Yet they're not coming out here for handouts at all. And of course, there's the issue of with the residents and infrastructure that's going to be impacted on them. I think this $500,000 could be spent directly in another direction, trying to keep the costs down for infrastructure and put it there. it's a good program. It looks great. I think it can be very well expanded, self-sufficient. It's going well, and I think this money we should be not provided here, but spent supporting other issues and issues that we have here in the community, like the LRT and the businesses downtown and infrastructure. So I won't be supporting this.
Councillor Fernandez?
So lots been said about all the different successful businesses and startups and things like that are happening, and I just feel very uncomfortable that I don't have a good understanding of the financial implications or what this full agreement is going to entail. It's $500,000 of taxpayers' dollars, and I just don't feel comfortable at this point. I may change my mind before council next week, but at this point in time, I don't have a comfort level. I don't have a full understanding, and again, that may be my fault that I should have asked that question earlier, and I apologize for not doing that. I thought it was interesting what Councillor Marsh said about some of the downtown living in silos, and being a more suburban councillor with the Conestoga College in my ward, and I keep thinking, well, if only universities can access this, does that mean the Conestoga College students won't be able to access that? And that's a crying shame. So right now, I'm just not convinced that I want to see $500,000 being spent on this initiative, on this proposal. I think there are many, many other proposals and other businesses that would love a leg up, a hand up. We've already helped Communitech for many, many years, and I thought Councillor Yanetsky made a good point, and I saw, I'm sorry, all of a sudden I've forgotten your name, nodding when he said it's buzzing and it's growing and it should be self-sustaining. So then why are we the ones that are putting the money up at this time?
Okay. I'm just going to read a brief portion from the Kitchener Record article that Mayor Verbanovich mentioned. And it's to do with, it was in the front cover of the Record at the moment. It's the top story at the moment on the website, and it speaks about an area that isn't even all that close to the tannery and the Yeti Cafe. It says, on Saturdays, the quirky space inside the Yeti and the collection of chairs and tables outdoors are often packed. Many of the regulars work at startups. Quote, I have really benefited from the startups here, Kent says. The Yeti at 14 Eby Street North, across from the Kitchener Market. On Saturdays, the market and the nearby sidewalks are packed with shoppers. I'm actually going to continue. With all the yoga pants, expensive bicycles, high-end baby strollers around, there is no hint of Eby Street's gritty past where it was part of a stroll for sex trade workers. This, I know people hate the words no-brainer. This is the most concentrated investment in terms of economic development that I've seen in 5 years. We are literally putting money towards people that are going to be starting businesses, and the whole intention is to try and get them to stay in the community. Do you have any idea how many people go to the University of Waterloo for their 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, and then boom, they're gone because there's no ties? We spend all the investment in having that these people come here and then they leave. Sure, if we don't fund this, there's a chance this program may go back to the University of Waterloo. Well, that'd be a real coup for the city of Kitchener. This is a big deal. This it says in the report, there's a chance this will be the largest free startup space in the world. In the world. Now, maybe I'm a bit biased because I grew up, we moved here because my father worked at Uniroyal, and I'm especially sensitive to the idea of, I don't know what the exact term is, but a monoculture business, where you have one big business, like Maple Leaf, for example, that supports a significant number of the people in the city. The counter to that is startups, having hundreds or even, in our case, thousands of startups with all sorts of different business models throughout the city makes our economy incredibly resilient. It may not be a no-brainer. I respect the fact that some people are saying there's enough financial information here. By the same token, I would say that we were emailed about this many weeks ago. If you had any financial questions, I would have suggested you ask at that time. But the simple my simple point in this is that if you can't see the value in this, if you can't invest in this, then you don't ever really have any intention of investing in anything that has anything to do with economic development. It's just that clear. Has anyone called for a recorded vote? Thank you. Those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes Finance and Corporate Services. Pardon me, number 5. Yes, sorry. Moved by Councillor Singh. Any questions on this? Councillor Etherington?
Not a question, Mr. Chair. I spoke to you earlier about asking for councillors' indulgence with the requests of staff on another matter before we break for dinner.
Okay, yeah, let me just deal with this item first and I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Okay. Are there any questions on this item? And sorry, it's moved by Councillor Singh, correct? Those in favor? And then opposed? And Councillor Etherington?
Yeah, as I said, Mr. Chair, I would ask for council's indulgence. I recognise this is kind of out of turn. I have information that perhaps staff could confirm that we've got 3 or 4 LRT projects coming down the pipe, excuse the pun, that have to be completed during winter months because of LRT delays. And I wanted to know if staff could provide us on council with information that could result in a multi-million-dollar sideswipe to our current budget. I just need to know as these start coming, and I think council needs to know because it could involve a substantial amount of money.
Okay, Mr. Chapman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 4 projects that Councillor Etherington have referenced, I'll list them off. The first is at Siebert, the second is at Wilson, and those are similar to the Duke Frederick project in that they're the replacement of underground infrastructure within the road right-of-way. The other 2 are different. One is on Ottawa at the railway crossing, and this would be a cased crossing of the railway lines. And the 4th is a high-pressure crossing at Cortland Avenue. The 2 relocation projects at Siebert and Wilson are smaller in scale than Duke and Frederick. The other 2 are quite unique. We can't provide an estimate of cost at this point in time, even a Class C estimate. As you know, there are a few vendors. On our last tender, there were only 2. And there was a lot of volatility in pricing. We still need requirements from the rail lines as an example. Design needs to be finalized as well as the schedule. So unfortunately, nothing can be done at this point to refine the cost estimates for those projects until we have that additional information. But certainly we'll report back to council as we know more along each step of the way to give you a better sense as to what the cost may be.
Okay, very good. Councillor Singh, I have you in the queue.
I just want to make a comment about planning afterwards. So.
About planning? Okay, yes. So actually on that point, this committee is recessed. Councillor Singh on... Adjourned, sorry. When would you like to...
Thank you. Just to those that are in the gallery, again, council has been at this since around 1 o'clock without really a break.